Welcome to Movie Talk, our weekly show about the people who create the movies and those who star in them. Our guest today is Max von Sydow, whose brilliant career has spanned the early films of Ingmar Bergman to 3 Days of the Condor and Shutter Island, and who has characterized everyone from the devil to Jesus.
What is your name? Jesus.
You have portrayed many people over the years in a diverse amount of pictures, but the character of the renter has particularly attracted a lot of conversation because the audiences want to get a handle on that character. Did you, when you read the script, did you immediately feel this is a role that I'd like to tackle?
Immediately, yes. Yes, immediately. I was immediately profoundly moved by the story. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a wonderful story. And it's a positive story. It's not, first of all, a story about a catastrophe. It's about what the catastrophe caused with the family. And then it's about hope and love. Mm-hmm. And I was very taken by it and very... I knew immediately this I want to do.
How come you don't speak? Are your vocal cords damaged or something? Or did something scare you to death? Cool.
Stephen Daldry was thrilled, as he explained on our show, when you agreed to do the role.
Oh.
On the other hand, he did admit that there was a bit of debate in his own mind and with you as to whether or not the character should indeed have lines at the end. What was your feeling about that?
Well, when I heard about it, I didn't like the idea at all. And I did what I could to convince Eric Roth and Stephen that don't do that, because then it changes the story totally. Then it becomes a story about an old man who cannot speak and finally manages to do that. That's not what the story is about. It's about the young boy who is taking care of his own trauma and creates his own therapy to get out of this, and finally does that. And it's a wonderful story, I think, and it should not be disturbed of a side theme that would be... No, I didn't like that.
Do you ever try to talk? Why don't you try to say something to me? Go on. My name is the renter. Do you have a criminal record? Maybe you hurt people for a living. Well, what's your story then?
Beside that, I had a feeling that you, as an actor, enjoyed the other way of communicating.
Yes, that's true. I look for things that I haven't done before. It's so boring to get again and again and again offers to do more or less the same thing. And you get upset with whoever has come up with this idea to offer me the part. But don't they have any imagination? Don't they know that an actor with a certain experience should be able to do a lot of things, and not just one thing, not just one...
Well, it's not exciting exactly or demanding to repeat yourself.
No.
But on the other hand, you have gone from the extreme villainous roles,
Yes.
which you seem to love to do,
Sometimes, yes.
and into situations where you were, after all, Jesus.
Yes.
And I'm sure you, for years I read somewhere that you were haunted by that role because everyone wanted you to play a deity.
Well, not deity, but priests and bishops and cardinals and pope, etc., etc. And of course, there are many interesting characters.
Yeah.
How should I say, religious characters, yes. But all of them are not. And it's boring to get an offer to do something that is very, very close to something you have done already.
You don't want to be too consistently ethereal.
No.
So of the heavies you have played, the assassins,
Yes.
which characters were the most interesting to you?
Well, 3 Days of the Condor.
Yes.
I enjoyed very much, because it was an interesting and a new kind of a villain. Or is he a villain, or what is he?
You seem to understand it all so well. What would you suggest?
Personally, I prefer Europe.
Europe?
Yes. Well, the fact is, what I do is not a bad occupation. Someone is always willing to pay.
He kills for money, but he doesn't kill necessarily just not for pleasure, and he follows orders. He doesn't improvise.
Did you know that the word trauma comes from the Greek for wound? And what is the German word for dream? Traum. Ein Traum. Wounds can create monsters, and you are wounded, Marshall. And wouldn't you agree? When you see a monster, you must stop it.
You were splendidly sinister also in Shutter Island.
But in that story, it's an elderly doctor who has old-fashioned ideas. He's not a villain. No, he just does not go along with his new ideas about what should he do with a brutal patient in an insane asylum. What shall you do? No, he says, tie them up. I don't want any problems. Tie them up.
If they're manacled to the floor, they'll die. There's 24 human beings. And you can live with that, can you?
Frankly, if it were up to me, I'd put all 42 in wards A and B in manual restraints as well.
And he suggests the most brutal methods to heal them. And but he's interesting too.
Vem är du?
Jag är döden.
Kommer du för att hämta mig?
Jag har redan länge gått vid din sida.
Det vet jag.
Är du beredd?
Min kropp är rädd. Inte jag själv.
You, of course, were famously associated with Ingmar Bergman for many years.
Yes.
Did you actually meet as very young men in the theater?
Well, he was about 10 years older than me. But yes, he was very well established in the theater. He had even been the head of a municipal theater in the southern parts of Sweden. I was working at another municipal theater not too far away, and he came sometimes to see what we were doing, and finally offered me to come over and work at his municipal theater, which I did with great enthusiasm, because our generation admired Bergman already very much.
Yes.
And of course the fact that he not only did theater but also films made him even more exciting, and that was my beginning with him.
But I read somewhere that he early on felt an instinctive trust of you, that he felt that there was a mutuality of attitude, and that seemed to build over the years. How early on did you sense that?
I cannot tell exactly, but early. It was early. His background and my background were close to each other. My father was not a clergyman. He was a professor at the university. His subject was folklore, Scandinavian folklore. He specialized also in Irish folklore. But he came, and my mother too, from old-fashioned Protestant families with old-fashioned Protestant upbringing, and like Bergman did. But his father was, of course, a minister. He was a priest, and probably with very tough discipline, which you can see in Bergman's films, and in his choice of plays also, I think.
Villkoret är att jag får leva så länge jag står dig emot. Spelar jag dig matt, förger du mig. Du fick svart.
Det passar ju bäst så. Inte sant?
Did the two of you ever go out and simply have a couple of drinks and laugh and enjoy yourselves?
Oh yes, oh yes. No, but this is funny because Bergman, because of his films, or most of them, which are, how should I say, treating serious subjects or serious stories. He is considered as probably being a very serious man. Okay, he was, but he was also a man of great humor. He had a wonderful sense of humor and a wonderful laugh. But he, at the same time, was a man of great working discipline. And he was very strict with silence on the stage, silence around the camera when it came to shooting. And I think it was very good. He taught us youngsters to behave and to understand that this is a teamwork. We have to be in shape, and we have to understand each other, and we have to cooperate. Yeah. And we did, and it was very, very stimulating for my generation, I think.
Do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. For a time is coming when men will say, "Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bore a child." And they will say to the mountains, "Fall on us," and to the hills, "Cover us." For if these things are done when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry?
It seemed to be sort of ironic that when you would do your first American picture, you'd work with George Stevens, who also was a rather austere fellow.
Yes, he was. But I presume that the reason, whoever it was, to think of me was that, he has worked with this serious, religious Swedish director who sometimes makes religious films. And this von Sydow is probably just as serious as his director. So why not try him?
Right? And hence you began to get typecast.
Yes, yes, to a certain extent.
We could have had coffee under the sheets on Sunday morning.
What if we were to run? Run to somewhere far.
Run away? But think of the authorities. I don't want to become an outlaw.
I mean all the way to America.
America?
Voyage to America across the ocean. They don't follow anybody that far.
We'll get away.
Now, Pelle the Conqueror, that was a triumphant role for you. I mean, you
It was a wonderful,
great acclaim.
Yes, it was a wonderful story and a wonderful character, which I liked very much. And I if I would pick one film, one single film that has meant particularly much for me, that would be it. Mm-hmm. It's a character that appears in so many different situations, and it's rare to find characters that appear in more than 2 or 3 situations. How should I say? Emotional situations, but the poor father in Pelle the Conqueror, he appears in so many different kinds of relationships with people and with his boy.
But he was a broken man.
Yes.
And you play broken men superbly, even though you strike me as someone who is uniquely non-broken.
Well.
But that kind of character obviously entices you. That and the bad guys.
Well, yes. Yeah. Well, bad guys can be very interesting.
Yeah, indeed.
Not always. Sometimes they are cliches, and I don't like that. But there are many interesting bad guys.
Now, when you worked with Spielberg, that was a complicated sci-fi picture, as we say, Minority Report.
Magnificent film.
Yeah, but a complex film.
Yes.
Do you get a sense, having done many films, fairly early on, that things are either working or not working?
Yes, I think so, yes. But with Spielberg, things are working, I think.
Whitwer's scheduled for tour containment tomorrow.
Yeah, give him a tour. Lara called me.
What?
She's worried about you. Quite frankly, so am I.
I'm fine.
I understand you've been spending a lot of time in the sprawl.
I go running down there.
In the middle of the night. Say, what if Danny Whitworth came to you right now and insisted on a full camera?
I'm fine.
You understand, John? The minute pre-crime goes national, they're going to take it away from us.
We won't let them.
No? How's an old man and a cop on the whiff ever going to stop them?
Today, when you read screenplays,
Yes.
early on, when someone submits you a script, you say to yourself, I've seen this picture before, or I've played this character before, and I don't want to do it, even though it may be a good story. Is that right?
Yes, yes. Well, yes. I don't want to work all the time either. It's nice to work every now and then, but there are so many other things to do, and which have to be done.
Right.
And you know, things that you have been postponing for years and years, and finally you have to do them.
Yes.
And I'm trying desperately now, but
Artistic things or business and personal
many
things?
things.
Yeah.
Many things. But I enjoy so much to work with a good project or a good part. I would love to do theater if I weren't so lazy. But no, but the problem with theater is I love it. I've done it for so many years of my life, and it's so exciting for an actor. But if you do it, you are stuck for such a long time in a and if it is successful, it can go on forever. And of course, you want it to be successful, and but it takes time, and you are stuck in one spot, and you are tied up at least 6 days a week, maybe 7, etc., etc. But doing it is great.
Did you find early on in your film work
Yes.
that you were, since you were instinctively a person of the theater, that you overacted, that you were too theatrical?
I don't think I thought so when it happened, but afterwards, of course, I thought so very much. And now, watching the early Bergman films, I watched a little piece of the end of The Seventh Seal not long ago, and it's funny because it is. I project. I'm close to death. Death is here, and I'm here, and I talk to him like this, as if it's necessary for the people up on the 5th row to hear what I'm saying.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, normally in a film today, or should I say, since Marlon Brando came and changed it all, it should have been a very intimate dialogue between these two characters. But no, it wasn't. It was.
Jag ställer dig i schack.
Vad skrattar du åt?
Bry dig inte om mitt skratt, rädda din kung istället.
Du är ganska övermodig.
Vårt spel roar mig.
Det är ditt drag. Skynda dig, jag har lite bråttom.
Jag förstår att du har mycket att bestyra. Men vårt spel kommer du inte ifrån. Det får ta sin tid.
I find, if anything today, some of the actors do mumble a bit. I mean, they carry it to the
Well,
elements.
sometimes too much,
Yes.
of course, but you should be able to find the right way, and the right tone, and still articulate well enough for the audience to hear what you're saying.
Was there any film in the past that you turned down, that you regret in retrospect having turned down?
Yeah, well, yes, of course there was. But there's one example. I didn't turn that down, but circumstances became complicated, unfortunately. It was Fanny and Alexander. I don't know if you saw that. A wonderful film that Bergman did. And he offered me to play a villainous bishop, a leading part in it. And I was delighted to receive the offer, and I gave it to my agent, dear old Paul Kohner, to handle the situation. And apparently he asked for too much money or something like that, without corresponding with me. And Bergman and his producers got very upset. And finally, the Swedes said, we cannot afford that, and we are not interested anymore. I was working. I was not in on this. And suddenly I got the news, and I said, why don't you talk to me about this? I could have handled this situation. And now I'd be happy to do it. Please let them know. It was too late. The other guy was already signed up.
But we should say Paul Kohner was a European, but very much a Hollywood agent too.
Yeah, yes, but he was a genius in his field.
Brilliant.
Oh yes.
But he did want to protect you and
Yes.
And clients from being, as he felt, exploited by the Europeans.
Of course, yes.
So you should get Hollywood money too.
Yes, yes. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it was a bit naive of him because there was no such a thing as Hollywood money in Sweden in those days. And of course, particularly not for Bergman's film. I can tell you that The Seventh Seal, which was shot 57, I believe, or something. It cost the entire production, if I'm not mistaken, 40,000 Swedish crowns. And there were 5 crowns on a dollar at the time. 40,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing, but the entire production.
Comment vas-tu? Ou est-ce que c'est une question idiote?
E-S-A-R-I-N-T-U-L-O. E-S-A-R-I-N-T-U. Oui, c'est une question idiote.
Tu me manques.
Who was the character that you played in Diving
I
Bell?
was the father of the poor man.
Right.
I was an old father who apparently had a very good relationship with his son. And then the son has this accident and ends up not in a wheelchair, but totally lame. He couldn't move anything, but he could wink his eyes. And there were people around him with enormous patience who developed a language for him. So he could communicate with people. He was a very brilliant, intelligent man. And he dictated a book about his accident, about his life,
Yes.
by just blinking. But anyway, I played this poor man's father who suddenly is told about this accident. And he is old and doesn't move about very much. He's stuck in an apartment with his wife, 6 floors up or something. And he's told that the only way to talk to your son is through somebody who translates what you are saying.
Oh, wow, Jean-Dominique. Non, je me souviens, c'est bientôt ton anniversaire. Je rappellerai. Bon anniversaire.
That's a rich character to play.
But yes, but it was a small part.
Yeah.
I had 2 scenes only, but wonderful scenes, and it was a brilliant script.
And I think that covers it perfectly. And I thank you, sir. I really appreciate having a chance to see you.
Thank you.